Love Your Wife podcast. It's a Love Your Wife podcast. The Love Your Wife podcast. Love Your Wife. Love Your Wife podcast. The Love Your Wife podcast. The Love Your Wife podcast. Love Your Wife.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by aplanandplace.net. A Plan and Place sells customized planners for homeschool families. They help parents and students breeze through their homeschooling days. There's a planner for every age: early learners, elementary, junior high, high school, and homeschool moms. Right now, you can get 10% off your entire order if you go to aplanandplace.net/loveyourwife and use the coupon code LOVEYOURWIFE. That's aplanandplace.net/loveyourwife and use the coupon code LOVEYOURWIFE. A Plan and Place. Homeschool planners to help you breeze through your homeschooling days. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Frickin' Frack Foods. This is 5-star in a jar, made with San Marzano tomatoes, no sugar added, no preservatives, no seed oils, crafted by hand in small batch production. Once you tried this sauce, there is no going back. My wife absolutely loves this sauce. Every time she gets an opportunity, she'll use it. I see her the other day, she dipped some steak in it. She just loves it. So if you're looking for this sauce, you can go to frickinfrackfoods.com or go to Sprouts. And if you live in Georgia, you can go to Publix. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Flashover Action Shots. Freelance sports and action photographer, firefighter owned and operated. She took action shots for me and my band's performance, and the pictures were absolutely incredible. If you're in need of action photography, Flashover Action Shots is for you. This is the Love Your Wife podcast with your host, Dennis Byrne. Today we have a very special guest, Nick Brancato. Nick, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. So Nick reached out to me. He wrote a book called Prioritize Us, and he's been a life coach for 25 years. So with his experience, and he's been married for 3 years and a relationship for 10, I thought it'd be nice to get him on the podcast. So Nick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So my background originally is as a Microsoft systems engineer. I used to design networks and all that kind of good stuff. And I have a master's degree in education. I used to be a tenured high school teacher. And through that process, I became a professional poker player on the side while teaching. And I started teaching high stakes decision making under pressure and mindset management for the World Poker Tour. And did that for about 10 years, traveling the country, teaching these WPT boot camps, they were called. And so it was exciting and fun. And I think the highest stakes decisions that you can make are the ones for your relationship. So when you're playing poker, you have to be very focused, like with a lot of careers, but they're long days, 10, 12, 14-hour days, multiple days in a row, sometimes up to a week. And so you have to be very focused. And if you're not, then the things that distract you away from the table will affect you at the table, like is the case, I'm sure, with your profession for sure.
Yeah.
And so what I found is that a lot of people would struggle at the table because of factors that were going on away from the table, especially their relationships, especially their primary relationship. So I ended up often working with couples, the poker player and a partner, on the mindset management together, and to help them understand what's going on for each other when one person is playing. And so how they can, it was basically got into couples coaching that way, kind of the most backhanded way possible. And so I really enjoyed working with couples. I loved teaching and coaching in general. And my wife was going through a terrible period of time in her life where she was having some serious mental health issues.
Okay.
And this was like a really challenging period for us. And through this troubling time, she was having like hallucinations. She was very paranoid. And we eventually figured out that she had a paranoid schizophrenia. and it ends happy. She's doing well now and she's thriving. She has the right medication and everything is great. But this hardest period of time in my life, our relationship actually improved. Our miscommunication sort of fell to the wayside and our petty arguments disappeared because for the first time in our life, our priorities were like completely aligned. We were both prioritizing health and safety first instead of being distracted by or focused on career or growth or other relationships or whatever the case may be. So as our priorities aligned and our communication actually improved, we had this realization where if having the same top priorities makes everything easier, then what if we apply this to the rest of our relationship? And so we started identifying like general life priorities, and we sort of came up with 10 core life ones. And then we ranked them 1 to 10, 1 being the highest priority, 10 being the lowest. And then we did that separately and compared the results. And you get a total different score. So the difference between any two numbers. So if you rank career as number 1 and I rank it as number 4, the difference is a 3. So that's a small difference. The difference could be as high as a 9, or it could be the same as a 0. So we're completely aligned when it's a 0. And so by comparing these two things, we can get a total different score by adding each one of 0 through 50. 0 is complete alignment. It doesn't really happen. It's like 1 in a trillion. And 50 is completely different perspectives on life. And so I tested this in my coaching practices and with everyone that I could find, because I wanted to see the impact it would have. And what I discovered was that people found out hidden misalignments all over the place. And often there were many unspoken priorities that were at play that were the underlying factors or higher level problems that were going on in the relationship that were getting expressed in small day-to-day issues. And so
that's very interesting.
Yeah, so that's where the idea for the book was born. Prioritize Us. It's like a test you can take in 5 minutes. You just rank 10 core life priorities and you have your partner do the same. Then you compare the results, do some real quick math, and it gives you an objective measurement for where you're at in your relationship instead of being all wishy-washy and your emotions or your feelings are driving where you're at in your relationship. This sort of gives you something that's data driven, that takes the emotion out of the equation and gives you some direct feedback that's, I think, missing in sort of the relationship space.
Oh, for sure. No, it's great that you bring that up. And some of the conversations that I've had, I've told people that if your relationship isn't a priority or if it's not going well, then it's taking focus on it off everything else. So it's kind of harder to be successful because it becomes like a ball and chain type of situation, right? Which you don't want. You need somebody to lift you up. You need somebody to make your life easier. If not, you're kind of being pulled back unbeknownst to you because your main focus is really, it should be your relationship and how to make it better. I got to pause for a second.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, so we were talking about how the relationship was the primary
priority.
And it seems pretty obvious, right? But I think in day-to-day life it's easy to get caught up in life, your career, your kids, and it's easy for your relationship to take a backseat to everything.
So true. I think it's a lot like when you're on a plane, when you're a passenger on a plane and they go over the safety procedures and they tell you to always put on your oxygen mask first before assisting someone else, whether that's your child or your partner or whoever. I think taking care of your relationship as your top priority is a lot like doing that. It has to come before your relationship with your career or your kids potentially, unless there's a crisis going on, or even maybe it's even more important when a crisis is going on that you're most connected with your partner, your primary relationship, because when you get disconnected, then communication falls apart. And that's when really bad things start to compound and it becomes really difficult to deal with a crisis if one comes up.
Yeah, it's it's hard to get stuck in your whole routine, like I said. And what I started doing is I was relating it to work. So when I go to work and I turn the truck over or whatever, I make sure that it's in tip top shape. I make sure that I clean it, the floors, everything's stocked up. And then I started thinking, am I doing the same thing for my wife? Am I leaving
Oh,
her a clean house? Am I leaving her like a sink full of dishes? Am I leaving her a bunch of laundry? Am I leaving her work that she has to
right,
do when
right.
I can
Instead of
do it,
setting her
even
up
though
for
it's
success.
inconvenient? Yeah.
Right.
So that's how I kind of relate it back to work.
I think that's
Like I
great.
wouldn't do that at work. So why would I do that to her? But I'm telling you, it took a while. It took a
Yeah,
while for me
it
to
makes so
take
much
that.
sense, though. That's an
Yeah.
interesting way to frame it.
Mhm. So one of the first questions that I do like to ask the guest here is, do you love your wife?
I absolutely love my wife very much. Um, she's my top priority.
All right. So on your list of, you said 9, correct?
10
Do you guys,
priorities.
10. Okay. Do you guys rate each other at the same kind of priority? Or are you guys number one or?
Great question. So we don't have necessarily the same priorities. When we're ranking priorities, we're doing more general categories. So instead of a
Okay.
person, it's more like relationships or career or communication, entertainment, finances, growth, health, safety, sex, spirituality. So we're looking at those 10 things, and that covers most aspects of life. You're ranking them 1 through 10. And the goal isn't necessarily to have the same priorities as your partner, as your wife. It's to understand what the priorities are and be curious and ask the question, why? Why are these your priorities? Why is that you're in your top 3? Why is that in your bottom 3?
Hmm.
Why? Trying to understand the motives behind what the person is doing in their life, uh, and get some context around their decisions, because so often we just assume that we know the motives of our partners, and we're just making up narratives. We have a primary belief that the husband or wife should be a top priority rather than a changing number on a list, because your priorities change day to day. It asks the question like, what's most important now? Whereas your values, for example, are like your stable beliefs. Those don't change that much over time once you're a grown adult and you develop them, unless something significant happens and you really shifts them. But they're more so we have a value that we share of being each other's top priority. So that one doesn't change. And we share, it's part of a shared vision for like our life together. So even when we rank relationships, we're looking at other relationships when we rank them as a priority, not our own.
Oh, interesting. So you mean like friendships?
Sure, friendships, family
Okay.
members, just other your non-primary relationship, so not your wife.
All right, yeah. So that was to me. I was going to bring up that was interesting to me because you said relationships and then sex and spirituality. When a lot of people put that as part of their relationship.
Yes, very true. So I think that breaking them out is very significant, because what I've found in coaching and just talking to people in general is that sex and spirituality are two of the biggest, most important things that go undiscussed.
Hmm.
So sometimes they're talked about in the beginning of the relationship, sometimes 20 years in, and these topics have like barely been scratched. And it's surprising and it's kind of scary to think about what a relationship is like if you don't touch on certain things that could be really important to your day-to-day life.
Yeah, and you always hear, sometimes, a spouse will say, I know you more than you know yourself. It's like, well, how? Do you guys have those kind of conversations, or is it
Exactly.
just assumed? Yeah.
Right. So many people think that they know other people well when they don't. Like when I was coaching poker or even playing poker, the whole game is obviously like hiding what you have from your opponent and trying to anticipate what your opponent is holding. And you're trying to trick each other, of course. So keeping a poker face or bluffing.
Mhm.
And so many poker players are very confident they can read their opponents, that they know what their opponents are holding. And one of the things I would always ask them is like, if you were in that situation, what cards would you be holding? Like when you're taking those series of actions. And a lot of times
Mhm.
they're not even sure. Most of the time, actually. So they don't know what they would do in a situation, but they think they know what their opponent is doing. And it's like that in a marriage. That's like that in a relationship. Often people think they know what their partners are doing and why, and they're just filling in they're making up a narrative, and it's usually a false narrative, rather than actually having discussions and learning the real whys of what's going on.
Yeah. That's a good thing about this podcast for me too, is that when I interview people, I listen to it, my wife listens to it, and then I'm like, what did you think about it? And then she can go off and tell me about, oh, this guy was a certain way and it kind of rubbed her the wrong way. But, I just get to know her a little bit better,
I
you
love
know,
that. That's a
and
great
vice
learning
versa.
opportunity.
Yeah.
That's really cool. We have a morning ritual where
Okay.
we have a hot beverage ritual. And so we wake up at the same time, but whoever has an easier time getting up makes the hot beverages. And we take like 5-10 minutes with no devices. And our rule is no talking about other people, only ourselves or each other. So we just connect for these 5-10 minutes, and we can look at what decisions we have going on for that day. We can look at what our priorities are for that day, or we can just fill each other in with what's going on. And you can have some easy, low hanging fruit for connection. And by having it, it becomes a habit. And then you put these small rituals into place and they compound over time, and they create like an upward spiral of success, because you don't even think about having to make quality time. You just build it in, and then you'll be more connected and your communication will improve, and then your sex life will improve, and everything starts to compound in a positive direction.
I'm curious now about the hot beverage. Is that is that tea or coffee or like all
Yeah, exactly.
right.
One's tea and one's coffee.
All right. Yeah, my wife and I we enjoy having a coffee. So she's a firefighter too. We
Cool.
spend 48 hours away from each other, and then when we get that morning together, we like to have coffee and talk about our days. But I do like, because some of it is definitely gossiping,
Right.
So I do like the idea of try to make it more about yourself. Maybe, for a short time frame, because day-to-day stuff, and if I'm not around, I'd like to hear about other
A lot
things, but
happens.
yeah, a lot happens.
Yeah, so it could just be carve out the first 5 minutes where you're only talking
Mhm.
about each other or yourselves and your relationship, and then after that, it's fair game.
No, I like that. All right, so let's talk about how you met your wife.
Oh, so I met my wife about well over 15 years ago. She was working for the World Poker Tour as I was. We met
Mhm.
and we were working together and friends for a long time before we ever got together. And it wasn't until around 10 years ago that when we both stopped working for the World Poker Tour that we really found each other. And a lot of it was through crisis that we connected, where uh, health was such an issue, and we were both trying to solve that and get it on track.
Okay, so how long would you say you knew each other before you started dating?
Let's see. Um, 7-8 years.
Oh, okay. Now, did you maintain a friendship for that time, or
Yes, we
was
were
it just like
colleagues
acquaintance?
and
Okay.
friends. Um, we were part of a group that would travel together, putting on training events over the course of a weekend. So there was like a core group of us. We all lived in different locations, different states, but we'd come together in places where there was gambling, and meet in
Mhm.
casino and hotels to put on these boot camps, they were called, training people in poker. And we just had a great relationship as friends for a long time before we ever got romantic.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I
part of
like
that was
talking about that.
we were living in different areas. We
Mhm.
were with different people. We never had like downtime together in that way. Uh, we were single for a long time because we were traveling, and it was hard to keep out our other relationships going. So if we were dating, like I'm from New Jersey, so if I was dating someone in New Jersey, but I'm going away all the time, it's hard to start a new relationship or maintain one.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that have these kind of jobs sort of struggle with the balance between career, and I wasn't prioritizing my primary relationship when I first started doing things. So I was single for much of it. And uh, it wasn't until things calmed down when I stopped traveling so much that I shuffled my priorities in life and began focusing on relationships first and health and safety.
Okay, so you started talking like more than just friends and then started dating. Is that how it started at first?
Yeah, I mean we were so close friends that when we were having health issues, when my wife
Mm.
was having health issues, me and several other close friends were trying to help her through
Mm.
it. Um, I was helping the most for sure. I'm sure there was a lot of interest there on my part, but she was not doing well. Um, so relationship was the furthest thing from our mind at that point. It was just about getting healthy, and that was the primary thing. And then we bonded through that. We both our priorities aligned, and we really came together. The love was obvious that we had built over the course of our relationship because we cared so much about each other's health and improving their quality of life and living, because it really was a life or death for a while there. It seemed like she lost like a third of her body weight because she was so
Oh,
paranoid that she thought food was tainted and things like that. So it was so touch and go for a while. It was really scary.
no, it's great that you stayed with her or by her side through that kind of stuff. It's something that would very much cement the relationship. You know.
Absolutely became a great like pillar for our relationship. We knew that, the in sickness and in health part, we had that down.
Mm.
So it was a pleasure to eventually cement our relationship as significant others and then get engaged and married. And it's only gotten stronger since, because we had such a foundation as friends, but because we really got a foundation um, in each other's priorities and each other's health in particular.
All right. So, did you? All right. So let's talk about the proposal. How did you propose?
So I proposed on a cruise. We went on a cruise to just for a vacation, and it was a complete surprise. It was actually a specialty cruise. My wife's favorite thing is Star Trek.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she loves Star Trek: The Next Generation in particular, which was the second one from the '90s, and so we went on a Star Trek cruise where the cast was there and the characters, and so they have like all kinds of themes, and one of the things was like a marriage renewal ceremony, or a commitment renewal ceremony rather, and
Mhm.
so I was like, "Oh, let's check this out." So we checked it out, and I surprised her by proposing during what was supposed to be a different kind of ceremony.
Mhm. That's awesome. What?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I haven't heard of that. How do you find a specialty cruise? Is that like a Disney thing? It's not Disney.
Oh no. So
No.
there's like s- all kinds of themed cruises that are out there. If you just Google
Oh,
them, it's
okay.
amazing. There's like '90s themed cruises, '80s themed cruises where the theme is the music and everybody's dressing like that
Mhm.
era, to characters from Star Trek. There's Star Wars things that
Mhm.
are also themed. If there's a convention for it, then there's probably a cruise or a destination type event around those characters. It's amazing what's out there. Yeah.
Mm. So, were you guys living together at that point before you got engaged?
Yes, we were.
Okay. All
For a
right.
few years. I think
So,
that
all right.
that's important
Okay.
before you dive in to a lifetime commitment. Unless you really spend a lot of time evaluating your values and your priorities and really thoroughly vetting the relationship, you don't it's hard to really know someone well if you don't live with them first. So if you're going to go ahead and make that lifetime commitment, I'm kind of an advocate on the side of living together first, at least part-time, so that you can get your routines down, see what your mornings and nights are like, see what your hours are like, and not just have on your like best foot forward dating face, because
No, yeah.
that's not what real life is going to be like.
Hmm. No, I completely agree. And I've interviewed some people that are very religious, and I think that's the only way that it works out, you know, when they typically just wait and their vows. So I'm not like super religious. I don't know if you are, but I found that the people that are very religious, they really take their vows very seriously. So that's what enables them to not live together because they know it's going to work out. And it's like a mutual understanding because we live in a day and age where that's typically not the case. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm going to say this now, but you know, if I don't like it in 5 years, I'm out.
So true. I was just working with a couple that they both ranked spirituality as number one for their top priority, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't live together first. So it's you were right on with what you said. I think sometimes when you have a belief or a value or a priority that's a stable one, that's a commitment to something, it can sort of override the need for learning any one particular thing in the relationship because you're committed to staying together and learning and changing and growing and aligning, and that's what you're committing to, rather than committing to the person who they are right now and thinking that they're never going to change. I think that that's what a lot of people end up doing. They're in love with a moment, they're in love with a phase, they're in love with who the person is now, and their hope is maybe even that the person never changes rather than that they grow and learn and change together and accept each other for who the person is going to be, also in addition to who they are now.
Yeah, that's I wrote a vow for that reason, and it was I promise to always give you the better version of myself. So I'll always work to give you that better version. And she completely agrees, and she helps me become that better version. So with that, it's like we are growing together. But I can understand how people do grow apart, and some people they do seek the counseling, and I don't blame them for that at all. And you said you counsel
I do
marriages.
couples coaching and
Okay.
I do priority alignment. um, I work with a lot of couples in just different aspects of their relationship. I do personal development coaching, so a lot of it is focused on attaining particular goals more efficiently as a couple, rather than it's not like therapy. You know, it's more
Mm,
like where can we improve our relationship? Um, what systems can we put into place? What can we architect as a
mm,
framework for that's mutually beneficial and long term sustainable? That's what our goal always is. So, like, what moves as a quick test? Like, what moves us closer as a couple together? Will this move us closer or will this move us further apart?
mm.
And what systems can we put into place to facilitate us growing together and avoiding like what I call priority drift, which is when you're sort of growing apart, but you often don't even realize it until maybe it's too late. I'm not sure that it's ever too late, but it can be a lot later than you'd like it to be, for sure. And you can make it a lot easier on yourself by doing these sort of check-ins.
Yeah. So can you give us an example of priority drift?
Sure. So many times early in a relationship, couples are each individual is focused on their career for example, that's in their top, maybe their top priority or in their top three. And over time, one partner, often the woman, starts becoming more interested in relationships and starting a family at some point. If she's if that's what she's interested in, it's very common, of course. And so, if they don't check in with each other, then one person might stay focused on their career while the other has these shifting priorities, and it can feel like neglect. It can seem like the person who's still focused on their career is no longer interested in the relationship, but one person has slowly transitioned to a new phase of life and they've never explicitly discussed it. And sometimes it happens gradually over time, and sometimes it happens suddenly, like somebody has a health issue, or or there's a pregnancy, or somebody has a career change, or a death in the family. So when there's a crisis or when something big happens, it's even more important to check in and see how we're going to change our priorities. What are we going to shift to adapt to the new situation? So I wouldn't just encourage people to rank their priorities, but I'd also encourage them to, as an individual exercise, assess how much time you spend on each priority, like on a weekly basis. It's like, how much time do you spend on your career? Is it the standard 40 hours and you're putting in 45? Or are you spending 60? Or are you only spending 25 because you work from home and you're supposed to be spending 40? Or whatever the case may be, how much time are you spending on entertainment? Where do you rank that? Is it in your bottom three, but you're spending 30 hours a week, scrolling and consuming content that's not educational, that you're not learning from, that you're maybe not even enjoying that much? And wouldn't we rather maybe pull some time away from entertainment and put it to relationship or career or communication or growth or health? Or, I mean, it depends. Sometimes entertainment is really important because someone's having a hard time and they need an outlet. But most of the time, people rank it low but spend a lot of time on it. And so my goal is always for people's actions to be in alignment with their intentions. So by assessing your own priorities, you're able to see what you want to happen in the future, what's important to you now, and then you can allocate your time and money and resources toward the things that are most important to you, rather than letting them dwindle by allocating them accidentally almost to the things that are low priorities.
Yeah, to me, what you said makes so much sense because so in the fitness world, right, everyone would be like, oh, you gotta count your macros, you gotta put in your calories, you gotta clock your meals, because if you don't do that, how are you gonna know? How are you gonna know if you're burning the right amount of calories? How do you know if you're getting as much protein? It's the same thing with relationships, but we don't think of it like that. So
Yes.
if you can put that, in like it, prioritize your list, see what it is, and at the end of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and be like, all right, look, I thought this is what we're doing, but it clearly isn't. So let's go back and redo the macros.
Yes, I love that. It's just like working out and exercising and tracking things. That's a great analogy. I think of it like a relationship credit score. Most people
Okay.
don't know the strength of their relationship beyond vague emotions. And when you just grab something like the total difference score, the TDS instantly tells you how aligned you are, what's working, what needs improvement. And the lower your score, the better your long-term outlook is, as far as communication, as far as decision making goes together. The higher your score, the more differences that are going on. However, there's low hanging fruit for easy improvement um, across these areas that have probably not been discussed.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, let's go back to, all right, you proposed. What made you think that this is the one? I'm gonna propose.
Wow, that's a great question. So for me, it was my wife, my now wife, then girlfriend, made me want to have an integrated life, as opposed to a life where we had separate worlds where like I'm doing these things and I have my career world and I have my friendship world and I have my family world and then I have my wife. And sometimes she hops in, but it's not really that integrated. I realized through the health crisis, like how I value every moment together and want to get as much time together as possible. So when I realized how much I would miss um, even little things, I realized that uh, this is who I would want to spend as much time with as possible. And also who I would want to be responsible for me, like in a medical situation. We wanted to be responsible for each other. And that's actually a big part of what you're agreeing to in marriage that I think isn't really talked about enough is that you're taking responsibility for the other person's health if they can't manage it themselves. And so that's a big commitment that people are making, and they're often just thinking of it not. The same thing with business. She's someone who I wanted to partner with in future endeavors because we had a great working relationship in the past. So any business that I'm involved in, I'd love for her to be my partner, active or silent. That was another big thing. So we had a foundation of being very close friends. Um, I experienced the potentially losing her. So it really made me appreciate her and see that I didn't want my life to exist without her, and that I wanted us to get as much time together as we could swing and not be off like traveling separately or on completely different career paths, because we were in a position where we could sort of restart together once we got the health under control. And so we were able to spend more time sort of designing a life than a lot of people might have the luxury of doing. But that doesn't mean you can't communicate and have a shared vision for the future. You may not be able to just shift jobs or, do something drastic like that. But if you know you want an integrated life where you have shared worlds and where a lot of things are not going to be separate rather than a compartmentalized life, which is the one that I used to live, like very compartmentalized, lots of separate worlds because I was traveling to so many different places. There was like worlds in each little place of different communities of people that I would interact with and everything like that. And so it was very broken. It was like uh, not a whole universe that I could interact with. It was just so segmented. It wasn't how I wanted the future to be.
Yeah, that's a very interesting answer. But yeah, I mean, it does make a lot of sense. So it seems like you just found your person, and you know, all those other things that were priorities suddenly kind of faded away, right?
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about your wedding. When'd you get
Okay.
married? Yeah.
Sure. So our wedding, we actually eloped.
Okay.
We were engaged for a while. We knew that we didn't want to have a big wedding. So it was a matter of when we were going to get married. We live in Vegas, so it's very easy here. So we were back at a family event. We were at Thanksgiving together in Jersey, where we go almost every year. It's a tradition that I've been going to the same Thanksgiving since I was born. It's pretty amazing. It's like 30 family members. So we were
Awesome.
back there. We had an amazing time. We saw there's like some very healthy long-term couple relationships that are married in my family. My cousins in particular who host the event have a great marriage, and a lot of my other family members do too. So we got to see it reflected, and we came back with such like an amazing vibe that we were like, okay, it's time to get married. Let's do it.
Mm, awesome. So you went to the courthouse then?
We went to the courthouse to get our license, and then we went
Okay.
to the little white wedding chapel in Vegas, which is like the one you see on TV and in movies often.
Yeah.
Elvis and things like that.
It's
Uh,
awesome.
I think it was in an episode of Friends too. So it's like the famous one. We just went
Okay.
there, and no one was there. We were first in line, and we did it. It was great. It was alone. We didn't film it. We wanted it to be just between us. We used traditional vows, and then we added words to them each, and we wanted it to be remembered, not recorded. So we did it like that.
It's awesome. What's your favorite memory of that wedding?
Um, I'd have to say, like looking in each other's eyes, knowing that we're barely even processing the words that the what is it the the marriage
Pastor.
I don't know, it's the
No,
pastor.
it's
I
not a
don't even know.
pastor, right?
I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
The certified marriage, the officiant.
No, there you go.
So the officiant, we're barely processing the words that the officiant is saying because we're so focused on the moment and being present with each other. It's not until it's our turn to say something that we kind of snap back because we were so connected and into the moment, because we had known for a couple years that at least that we were going to do it, but we never knew when or how. And it was just serendipitous, the right timing.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing in the wedding. That's why I like to talk about it because, you said you were together for 10 years before that, right? Is that correct?
We've been together for 10 years now, so we were together
Okay.
for 7.
Okay. Yeah. So for 7 years, it's like you've seen her, you've had these conversations, and it's just that particular moment when you're fully in before, I'm sure, but it's just the moment of you actually both agreeing to it,
Yes, and interestingly, also for a long time, we each separately never thought we were going to get married.
Hmm.
So we both knew that we didn't want to have children because we didn't feel like we could give the necessary attention and still pursue our passions and careers, and we wanted to focus on those things. And so we were sort of aligned on that, and so marriage was was a low priority basically in a relationship because it's usually the foundation for children. And what we came to realize with that can be the foundation for everything. So it's particularly surprising that we ended up married to each other when neither one of us thought we were going to get married.
So at this point, because I know things change, right? So, are you thinking about having kids now, or is it something that you both agree
Um,
that you're not going to?
we're still not going to have kids
Okay.
because we want to focus on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's the genetic piece of like not necessarily wanting to pass particular genes.
Okay.
So there's that too, but it's the real reason is that we just want to focus on each other and have that be our primary relationship. And if we have a child or children, the priorities are going to drastically shift, of course, and they'll become uh, a huge focus and an allocation of our resources because we want to be the best parents that we could be.
Yeah, I mean that definitely makes a lot of sense. So right now they have IVF, and everybody's going to that, and more power to them. But I can understand. I can understand what you're saying for sure. I'm sure a lot of people can. Um, is there any other health issues that you want to talk? Like, has she ever had to help you with your health issues? Have you had any of health issues?
She's helped me absolutely with with every aspect of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly my health. I've had mental health struggles at different times. Struggles with dealing with grief, losing loved ones, and dealing with crisis of through that type of thing. She's been right there by my side through uh, business tragedies. She's really
Mm-hmm.
supported me uh, uh, through being victims of crime and being traumatized. She's been right there by my side, supporting me. So she's helps me and she makes me better in every area, and she's helped me through just about every kind of crisis I think that I could think of, even spiritual ones.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's talk about divorce. Do you guys talk about divorce? Have you talked about divorce before you got married? Or do you joke about it? Do you just bring it up casually? Because some people are, I'll divorce you.
Yep, that's
And it's to each their own, but I'm just curious.
great question. So we talked about it before we ever got engaged. In a general sense of like both of us didn't believe in divorce. If we believed in marriage, then we believed in the long run. The the end game being truly till the end.
Mhm.
No out. So that's one of the reasons also why I think maybe we didn't picture getting married to anyone when we were younger, was because what we did view it, we did have the same value around marriage being forever. And so maybe that was too hard to comprehend too when we were younger. Uh, but then as we got older, it became exactly what we wanted, because when you have the commitment that you're not going to leave no matter what happens, no matter what misalignments occur, then everything isn't as high stakes. So much is high stakes in a relationship. Every argument, every discussion, every disagreement, it can be, if the relationship is always at stake, if that's the game you're playing, man, you're putting yourself through a lot of stress. That's a really high stakes game to be playing all the time. Like, make it easier on yourself. You know, be in it for the long haul, make that decision, and then just honor that decision every day. Because if you're, the alternative is to be constantly stuck in a loop where you're thinking the same thoughts over and over, like, am I going to stay together? Are we going to get married? Is divorce on the table? And then if you use it in language, to me, that's kind of like a 4-letter word. Like, let's not throw around divorce unless we're going to have a serious conversation about it. Because, like, a lot of truth is said in jest.
Mm.
And it's hard for me to calibrate where we're at in our relationship if you joke about it. It might even be really funny. I might laugh and I might be sincere, but like in the long run, is it really serving us to to joke about it? Can't we just joke? Like, you can joke about, you can make fun of me for anything and I'm cool with it. So like, let's find a different joke.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. No, I like that question because I heard some other couples, they kind of joke about divorce, and some of it's kind of a backhanded thing, but I feel like sooner or later it might take a serious turn. But it's interesting what you said about the stress around being in a relationship before you get married, right? So my wife, before we got married, she's gonna listen to this, and I love you, babe, but a little bit more nitpicky on certain things, right?
Mm,
And then as soon as we got married, she was like, we're in it forever. So I'm
right.
not going to be worried about these little things and these little issues like I was before. And it was interesting to see the turn. It happened very quickly. But it's to your point, what you said was it wasn't, before you get married, even when you're engaged, the partner can leave at any time. And it's
Yep.
not paperwork. It's not, you have to tell your friends and family, like, oh, I'm getting it's very simple. But now that you're married, it becomes way more difficult. But also with that ceremony, it kind of stamps that in too.
Right. For a lot of people, the vow itself and the moment has significance, and they'll respect that. Sometimes as much as they respect the relationship, if they're spiritual or religious, like you talked about earlier, I thought that was a great point, because knowing where your values are aligned and where your priorities are aligned is a big deal. Because where are the red flags and where are the green flags? What are the pillars of your relationship? Like, when people analyze their differences and the differences are large or even medium, I encourage everyone to start by looking at their strengths. Like, what is the core of our relationship? Where are we strongest? Let's talk about those things. Let's spend time allocating resources to our strengths, and then we can address our differences.
Nice. Um, so what does being a husband mean to you? Is it something that you think about, you put thought into? I feel like for the most part, we know what we expect from a wife, but we don't, we don't really think about what's expected from us. So go
This
ahead,
is a
Nick.
great question. So I've never been asked this before. It's really good.
Mhm.
For me, it's being a champion for her biggest supporter, a cheerleader for her. Um, uh, Certainly, one thing that I heard that I loved is a cheerleader in public and a coach in private. And so I want to do anything I can to facilitate her excelling in whatever areas she's passionate about pursuing. And I want to let her become who she wants to be and make space for her to do that. I want to make sure that I don't do anything that might hold her back uh, when she wants to grow and change, because I get locked into an idealized version of who she is right now or who she was. So I always try to be conscious of being not just in love with my wife now, but in love with who my wife is going to be, who she's becoming, all the
Nice.
changes.
Nice. So what do you think a wife is? How would you define that?
I would define a wife as a support system, a companion, uh, a, a, a shared, uh, a partner on a shared journey. Um, I think it's so important to have a shared vision together of what the future's going to look like. So it's also someone who you dream with, who you
Mm,
imagine things with, which is, what you're manifesting, what you're alchemizing, what you're building, however you want to look at it. Um, and maybe a best friend
nice.
is one of the most important things, I think, because if you have too many close relationships, then you're allocating your time and resources amongst all of them to a certain extent, and in some ways deprioritizing your primary relationship. So it's a point of contention, I'm sure, if your significant other, your wife, should also be your best friend or not. Um, I'm an advocate for your primary relationship being as integrated as you can have it. So when I say best friend, I mean someone who you share your secrets with, who you share your private things with, as opposed to that being another person out there where you hide things from your wife and you share things with someone else.
Mm, yeah, for sure.
That's what I don't ever want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting question. The wife being the best friend. I view my wife as a best friend, but I can see there. There's been a couple videos on social media, and they talk about when you get married and have kids, like you stop hanging out with your friends, and
Right?
how much like they miss hanging out with their friends. And I could definitely tell you from my standpoint, and my wife knows because I used to hang out with my friends a lot more, but when you have a kid and a wife, the priorities definitely switch, you know? But it's good for me that she is my best friend, but I could see with certain people in certain relationships that if that's not the case, they're going to need that outlet, you know? So
Yes.
for the woman to be understanding in that aspect, which is difficult, you know?
It is difficult, and it's so important that you have other relationships outside your wife or your
Hmm.
primary one that are close, that you do share things with. um there's all kinds of great studies, including like a 75-year one from Harvard, that shows that happiness and longevity directly correlates with the quality of your close relationships. It's like there's a great thing I've heard before that says you're the average of the 5 people that you're closest with.
Oh,
And
okay.
so who you choose to involve in your life really is going to make up the person that you end up being, and how happy you are and how long you live, which is amazing. It really is a big contributor to your overall health, the quality of your relationships. So it's important to have multiple close relationships.
Yeah. Do you think men and women can just be friends?
Wow. Great question. Just put me on the spot.
Well, it's an interesting question
It is an
because
interesting question.
you were friends with your wife before you guys
Absolutely.
got together.
So I do think that men and women can be friends, but
Mhm.
it involves boundaries, and there has to be systems in place that are sort of governing the relationship. So I definitely think men and women can be friends. But it comes down to where you're spending your time. If you're spending time with a friend much more than you're spending time on your primary relationship, if you have one, then that's potentially problematic. If you're
Mm.
spending a lot more time communicating with your friend than your primary relationship, then your priorities might be a little out of whack. So is it really just a friend? That's the question I would ask myself and
Yeah.
want to ask someone if I was coaching them. If I noticed that they were spending a lot of communication time on someone besides their wife or their partner, I'd want to examine that relationship a little more closely to make sure that it's a healthy one and not one that's going to compromise what they claim is their most important relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And I had a buddy that I interviewed here, Dom, and one of the things he said is he didn't think that men and women could just be friends. But one of the things he mentioned is you can't let another woman think that they have something over your wife, right? So, an example being, like you just said with your friends, like you could tell your close friend something, but you're not going to tell your wife the same thing. So if that close friend is a girl and you're like, oh, well, I can't talk to her like this. I can't talk to my wife like this, or I can't, I didn't tell my wife this. So it makes the girl feel like, oh, well, I got something over her. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's a shot here.
Right? That changes it shifts the whole power dynamic in the social relationship. It
Mm-hmm.
Because you're basically colluding against your wife with someone else who happens to be the opposite sex also. So
Yeah.
you're 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 on a slippery slope. Collusion is always slippery.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. How do you keep your relationship fresh?
The way we keep our relationship fresh is we do these small, medium, and large check-ins. So the small one is like the hot beverage ritual. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a weekly one is at least 2 hours of dedicated time together,
Mm-hmm.
where with no screens and no talking about other people. So it could be a dinner, it could be time alone, in the backyard, could be taking a walk together, a hike, could be a shared experience together. In our case, maybe going to the casino, but you have to be interacting and no screens. No screens is so important because so many people are distracted, and that severs the connection. It certainly weakens it, and it's not quality time if all you're doing is watching content together. So if you're just sitting watching a show or watching a movie, that might be nice and wonderful and everything like that and entertaining, but it's not quality time and it's not going to drastically improve your connection. And it might diminish it if you do it too much.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I would say the only time that's not the case is if it's, I don't know, like a rom-com or something like that, or
Yeah,
something,
yeah, absolutely.
but something like kind of educational that you could talk about later, you know, because you always get the, oh, what'd you think about this? Or what'd you think about that? But to
Yeah,
just,
I think that's a great point. When it's educational, we try new things together. So we go to new places. We watch new pieces of content that we're both interested in. Uh, we do things like watch, like we're watching a course together right now on just a YouTube short video course. So it's only like 4 minute videos. So we do like one of those a day, and it's something that we're just we can do it together. or we can do it separately and it's not like hard to fit in.
Mhm.
So we can kind of stay on pace and on track. And so we have something we're both learning and growing together, gives us something else to talk about. And it puts us um, in a more shared reality. One of the big things that I discovered through the mental health crisis is that we're not always in the same reality. We can be living different lives, different worlds, different experiences, different perceptions. It seems obvious, but a lot of people don't really think about it unless an extreme situation occurs, like the one we experienced, where we were literally living in different realities because of the schizophrenia. So we've tried to find as many shared reality touch points as we can and sort of turn them into habits or rituals or routines or systems that we have in place so that no matter what's going on in calm or crisis, we're able to connect.
Awesome. Um, how do you guys get over fights?
That's a good question. The main way we get over a fight is we're quick to apologize. We're quick to uh, adopt a learning stance and be willing to be the um, trigger for the situation. Like, I'm very willing to accept that I played some role in the argument, and my wife is the same way. We weren't always this way. We would play the blame game like most people do. Oh, we fought because of you. No, we fought because of you, and it doesn't get you anywhere. Like, it doesn't matter why we fought. It matters that we're disagreeing, and if we have a disagreement or an argument, we try to pause, apologize, and then look one level higher. So if it's an
Okay.
argument about the dishes, it's probably not about the dishes. It's probably about, like you said, maybe setting up the day for success. You know, my wife has a much better day if she comes down and the kitchen is clean and she can just make coffee, and it's a much nicer environment. So
Yeah.
if I handle the dishes at night, then it takes care of that. And so if we have a disagreement over something like that, it's really not about that. It's really about like it's messed up her ramp up sequence for the day.
Yeah.
You know, she had a vision for the start of her day, and it got thrown off because I didn't do something that I could have done. So looking at a higher level um, than the one that you're at, and the priority level is often the right level to look at because it asks the question, what's important to me now? What's important to me today? And so it reveals your motives for all your actions throughout the day. So instead of me wondering what time you're going to be home, or if you're late, why, or what you're going to do when you get home, are we going to spend time together? Are we going to watch a show? Are we going to eat together? Are we going to do anything? I know based on your priorities, I can anticipate with much more accuracy how things are going to go, and therefore have my expectations met instead of my expectations being um, not uh, aligned with what actually happens. So setting myself up for failure by like picturing this evening that could have never happened because my priority right now is career, because I'm up for a promotion or I'm about to lose my job and I'm going to have to work late, and there's no shot we were going to have dinner or watch a show tonight or have any quality time. And because even if I get home on time, I'm going to have to do work. So whether I stay late at work or I get home, and that's anticipatable when you know that that's my priority right now. But if we never talk about it and it's hidden, we have so many more miscommunications.
Yeah, I really just feel like a lot of people don't even talk about their relationship, you know? And it
Yes.
seems like a lot of the times when I interview guys, they'll talk about how much communication is key, right? And it seems obvious, right? How are you going to know? Talk to your partner, you know? But it's one of those things that I don't think I think we know that it's important, but we don't understand it, why it's important.
I
It's a weird
agree.
thing.
It's very weird. A lot of people will put communication as a high priority. And then when they are asked to how much time they spend on communication, they might not be allocating that much time to it or that much resources to it, like resources like time, money, energy, thought. So it's about the type of communication. How high quality is the communication? What does the communication serve? Is it just talking about tasks and we're just reconciling our day-to-day life? Who's going to deal with the kids? Who's picking up what? Who's doing what when? What are we eating? Is it just about like sort of day-to-day decisions, or are you communicating about hopes and dreams, or a decision you have to make at work, or um, something enjoyable that you both find fun to talk about or think about? Like, is it a high quality communication? I'd also ask, what was the communication like in the beginning of the relationship? How did you primarily talk? You know, sex is a form of communication, a physical form of communication. It's a bonding experience. And people don't necessarily take into account physical communication, behavioral communication. What kind of signals are you giving off to your partner? Are you like open and smiley, or are you like withdrawn and closed off? You know, when you're sitting next to each other, is your foot touching the other person? Is there an arm? Is there bodily contact? What's going on? And I always love to ask the question, how much do you flirt? Like, how much do you flirt with your wife? How much did you flirt with her in the beginning of your relationship? What is your like flirt to feedback ratio? Like, how often are you giving criticism or feedback or a task or an action she's supposed to take versus how much are you showing interest in her physically, mentally, emotionally, on all those levels? That's what flirting is, right? It's a bid for connection. And so often it gets lost somewhere in the relationship. It's a real high priority in the beginning because that's how you express interest. And then it often just drifts to a low priority to the point where sometimes it's non-existent. And I work with couples where sometimes they're like, I can't remember the last time we flirted. It's like, oh, that's it's sad for both of you because that was one of your primary forms of connection. And if you can just start it up again, even silly things, compliments here, or little positive teasing there, a little flirty text, can't wait to see you, or anything. Just everybody knows what flirting is, and everybody knows what they did in the beginning that they're not doing now. And if they are doing it now, that's great, but you can be doing more of it because it's one of the best ways to connect.
Yeah, very well put. I think if anything, my flirtiness, the more we get, more we're together, it becomes ridiculous. I'd be like, hey girl, how you doing?
Absolutely.
It's not like I found like to your point, at the beginning of the relationship, it's like as a man, woman, you try your best to be sexy, right? You're trying to be sexy to attract, but it's just like we've been together for a while and now it's just ridiculous. And I don't know how to turn it back to being sexy again. So I try. It's just like, I feel like I always miss the mark with that.
Sometimes silly, not sexy is still sexy. Still, humor is one of the biggest turn-ons, they say. So getting somebody smiling, that's a great way to flirt, right? So even comedically is a great way to flirt. It's all in the right direction of connecting and of making it a priority. Like, and even just flirty text, you can even send corny texts, but it's like, oh, I'm thinking about you. And
Yeah.
it can also be like just can't wait to get my hands on you later type things. Like, they don't have to be like so trying to be sexy. It can even be like if you don't see each other that day, it can be a picture of your outfit, what somebody's wearing, or like if you know that they like an article of clothing or something like that, like thinking of you as I put this on type messages are like also good.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing lately when she's coming home. I make sure I'm wearing a shirt that she likes. I
Hey,
guess
I'll
that's a
take
little flirty
any
way.
edge we can get, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Are you religious at all?
Spiritual, not part of
Okay.
an organized religion. We meditate and do things like that like every day. So we believe, but we don't participate in like a church or an organized religion.
With your meditating, do you do grounding or breath work, stuff like that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we do everything from transcendental meditation, where you're using a mantra for around 20 minutes, and you're coming back to the mantra, and your goal is to get deep to a place where you it's sort of still and quiet. You get to a lower and lower level as you do it, to guided visualizations.
Mhm.
We do breath work. We both studied hypnotherapy in New York City when we were in Jersey. So we often write hypnotherapy scripts and then record them for ourselves to listen, to meditate, or do it for each other. If somebody's struggling with a problem, that might be one of the ways that is unique that we help each other. Uh, is like writing something that the person can read, or recording something that the person can listen to ground them, to help them when we can't be present. It's a great thing to do with like a voice memo too,
Mhm.
or a recording and just send it as a file. Um, and you can do these kinds of things. They really only take a couple minutes, but you have to think to do them. And that's the thing. Most people don't think like, oh, there's all these other kinds of communication points, not just talking in real time, not just spending hours together. People can write things and give those to each other too. People used to do it all the time. They were called letters and messages and notes. And it's kind of like a lost form of communication these days, it seems. I see all these text messages from people that are like single letters. I don't even know what it means. Like, are you coming?
Yeah.
Yes, I see. And I don't know. I can barely interpret a lot of the messages that are going on. I try to, and me and my wife try to really hold ourselves to high levels of communication, um, in written form too. So we'll do these exercises or habits or rituals for each other. And I think it makes a huge difference because it not only helps in real time to ground you, but it's uh, it, it's evergreen. It helps in the future. You can refer back to it. You can remember it. You can remember the words. You can reference it. You can take a picture of it and flick to it in your phone. It's very powerful.
Yeah, that's one of the things we used to do on our shift days when she was away and I was going to go to work. I'd write her a note of what I did that day or how my day went. Um, we since got away from that since we had the kid, but I'd definitely be willing to go back to do that. One of the things too that you mentioned when we talked about breath work is that's something that she got into. She took a class on it and then she was like, "Oh, let's do it on YouTube." We pulled up a YouTube video. But once again, it goes back to it's just something else that we can do together, And then I did a little session today and I wrote her a text. I did some breath work and she said, "Well, what did you see? How did you feel?" You know, it just strikes up a new conversation and communication. Then she's like, "Well, we should do it together."
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. It's so powerful to have these connection points. I think there's this tendency to feel like you have to do a grand gesture, like it has to be like all or nothing, like it has to be this whole night out and we're doing this whole thing or we're taking this trip. And that's great when you can, but 5-minute habits, 10-minute check-ins, this is the kind of thing that really compounds, that adds up, that makes your relationship successful, not the one-off grand gesture moments that you spend a lot of time and effort trying to create. If you reallocate that time to the smaller things and do them with consistency, I think you'll get much better results.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's switch gears. And what do you do when women flirt with you? How do you deal with that?
Great question. Uh, I flirt back usually.
All right.
um, I usually flirt back, and I have a pretty flirty personality in general. My wife knows this
Mm-hmm.
about me, and it's something that I'll share with her. And we're at the point in our relationship where we sort of feel proud about each other, that the
Okay.
person was getting some attention. So like the same thing, having that level of confidence in your relationship because you're in it for the long haul, because we are married,
Mm,
and it probably wouldn't be the same if we weren't. You know, maybe the flirting is uncomfortable instead of uh, a compliment. It's a point of contention. You know, my wife can appreciate when another woman appreciates me, and when I appreciate them back. It doesn't mean like I'm abandoning my wife and our relationship and going with someone else new or different. So my wife is proud, and I appreciate that. It means a lot because it lets me be free to interact how I'm comfortable, and then we get to enjoy. It's another connection point because like we get to talk about it. So like we can be at the same event, and I can be on one side of the room, and she can be on the other, and I can be talking to a woman alone or in a group, and my wife will notice that maybe I'm smiling at her, maybe she's attractive, or smiling back. She can like elbow me later, and she can be like, "Oh, I saw you,
mm,
the girl in the red skirt," or whatever. She can tease me about it. You know, it can be fun. Or I can be like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure someone wants to take me home tonight. The red skirt over there." You know, I get to like be a little cocky and boast a little bit, and she gives me room to do that.
mm.
And that's good for my ego. That's good for our confidence. It's good for our relationship. It's great for our sex life.
Oh, good. Yeah, I like asking that question because I'm a firefighter, and in the firefighter realm, it's hard for guys to stop at flirting. It becomes this thing where it's a snowball. It's a snowball effect. But so I like asking this question right afterwards: is what do you think keeps a man from cheating?
Oh, good question. You have great questions.
Thank you.
All these I've never heard before. What keeps a man from cheating? His wife.
Yeah.
um, the thing that keeps a man from cheating is a desire to spend his time and allocate his resources to build something in the future that's bigger and better than what currently exists. So to know that tomorrow and a year from now can be way better than today
Mm,
with someone, I think can give you the motivation to stay on the path and not go for like a finite win. So many people they're like they're trying to sleep with that girl, or trying to sleep with this girl, or they're trying to get that promotion, and they're just going for like these finite goals. So they're playing to win, they're playing for a particular outcome. I would approach it more like, instead of a finite game, an infinite game. So instead of trying to win, our goal is to keep playing and
mm,
play with the highest quality of life we can each have. So we're looking to create situations that are mutually beneficial and long term sustainable. So when you're uh, cheating, by definition, it's a finite outcome. Even if you have an affair that goes on for a long time, it's going to end at some point and probably end badly.
mm,
So part of it is also just setting yourself up for success. Like, why are you setting yourself up for failure? Why get into the committed relationship? There's ethical non-monogamy, and it's only increasingly popular. Polyamory, uh, uh, multiple sex partners that are transparent, multiple loves, polyamory, multiple sex partners that are transparent, and non um, ethical non-monogamy. So that's more common than ever. So there's ways to do it. If what you desire is multiple partners, you can have that. But
mm,
the way to get it isn't by hiding and doing it in behind closed doors secretly, because then you're just setting yourself for failure. You're building a house of cards. Eventually it's going to collapse. You can have a solid foundation of like very healthy relationships with multiple partners if that's really what you want. But you got to be clear about it up front and let people know that's what you're pursuing, and be willing to sometimes lose any one particular relationship because this is what you want in the long run. but I have seen it be very healthy and sustainable, ethical non-monogamy in people that I coach. So I know that it works, and it's a much better alternative to cheating, and people are more open to it than one might think. It's about having the difficult conversations, though, that really is what makes a relationship. So if you're willing to talk about the fact that I struggle with wanting to sleep with other women, like that's just real. Like, be willing to have a really difficult conversation. Like, I don't do it, but that doesn't mean I don't sometimes want to. And these are the triggers. Maybe we can, make it less of a problem. Maybe it's because we're not connecting physically right now that I'm seeking it elsewhere. Is sex a low priority for you because you just had a kid? Is sex a low priority for you because you're grieving? Is sex a low priority for you because you're not attracted to me anymore because I gained 50 pounds? What is it? Or is it just that we haven't had time to connect at all? And sex is a form of connection. And when our connection is weak, we have sex a lot less. And if we took these 5 minutes a day or 2 hours a week or whatever the case may be, maybe we'd be having a lot more sex because we'd be connected. And it's the diminished connection that happens often with priority drift when we don't check in, that results in decreased physical activity, and then I think often seeking it elsewhere. The other thing is, like, just like with flirting, how often do you compliment? So many times people are seeking attention because someone else is giving them positive feedback. They're giving them compliments. Like, are you doing that for your partner? Are you making them feel valued? Are you making them feel fulfilled in how attractive they are? Or are you just letting them go about their life wondering if they even look good because it's been so long since you've complimented them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I hear that, that's a sad thing, man. Like, why don't you compliment your wife?
Right?
It's so sad. I've heard a couple that's going through some issues recently, and that's pretty much what they're going through in a nutshell. It's like the guy hasn't complimented her in some time, and then you're like, how can you not? Like, are you just so much into yourself that you're not thinking about that? But
yeah, and sometimes
it's hard to be that brutal.
People are withholding sometimes of compliments because they're afraid of giving positive feedback. Like, they think they're punishing maybe they don't know that they're punishing, but they're punishing their partner by not giving them positive feedback because they're trying to, like, control their behavior in some, like, Pavlovian dog type way where they're doing conditioning, like, oh, you didn't do the dishes, so I'm not going to tell you you're pretty today. Oh, you didn't take care of the kids, so I'm not going to tell you that your work was impressive, that it was intelligent, the paper that you wrote, or the thing that you did at work, or the way you coached your kid, or how you helped them with their homework. There's a million things that you can genuinely compliment someone on if you just take a few seconds to think about it. It doesn't have to be the same compliments. You don't have to say that your wife is smart if you don't think she is. You don't have to say that she's hot if you don't think she is. Hopefully you think she's hot and smart. That would be wonderful, and you could say those things, absolutely. But say things that are true. Find things that are true. There's good in everybody, certainly someone that you chose to marry. There's lots of good. So when you notice, just say it out loud, point it out, send it as a text, write it as an email, send a meme, do something. Just don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great way to put it, and I appreciate you sharing that. What's your favorite interaction that you've had with your wife? Is it the coffee time, the hot beverage time?
My favorite interaction with my wife is probably when we right after we meditate.
Okay.
We're both in a clear place. We're able to be removed from the distractions of everyday life. So we have a clear slate to talk from and really connect. It's just a few minutes after we meditate, but it's always a peaceful, enjoyable time. And if there is conflict or was conflict at all, the meditation sort of helps us step back and start from a fresh angle, breathe,
Mm.
do breath work, uh, gain our composure, and really communicate much more effectively and connect again instead of trying to. So many people try to deal with their conflicts mid conflict, which is the worst time to deal with it. And that's what almost everybody does by default. I certainly did. And almost everybody that I work with does it. It's like they're in the middle, they just have a conflict and they're going to try to talk about it and solve the fight right now when one of them is not in a good place. Maybe both of them are not in a good place. It's much easier if we can somehow find a way to pause or talk about something else or and revisit this later, or take a few minutes to someone can throw some cold water on their face in the bathroom or do a little breath work and then talk about it, where at least one person, if not both people, are level headed and less emotional.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. I know for a fact my wife, she's the kind of person that if she feels slighted in any way, she's going to let me know immediately. And I like it because I know where I stand, right? But um, I think it just, with egos involved, and like you said, it's not a good thing to get heated and have these conversations because they escalate and they escalate and they escalate. And then you say something that you don't mean. And then it just becomes a small argument becomes this huge one for no reason. Right. But it's hard to just say, hey, can you stop talking? Because this isn't going to go well, because that's not going to go well,
Right.
So if we could think of a word, maybe pause, or I don't know. I don't know what the word would be, but it's hard to just say, shut up, because this isn't going well. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So you need a pattern interrupt. All you're trying to do is interrupt the pattern of the fight. So it can be anything from a safe word like banana to a joke or a reference, like maybe you watched the romantic comedy where they were fighting about something and you can reference that thing. Maybe there's a favorite line from a show or something that you can use, or maybe you can just put on a song, do something, change environment, go outside, like we're not getting, like, let's go on the balcony, let's go in the backyard, let's go in the front yard, let's get some fresh air. Just interrupt the pattern, even just going to a different room. Like, let's go into, if you're in the bedroom, let's go to the living room. If you're in the living room, let's go to the bedroom. Let's change something, because what we're currently doing environmentally, situationally, communicatively is clearly not working. So let's give ourselves a better chance of success in this communication.
No, I definitely like this topic. I've been in past relationships where it's like, I used to call it a circle. You'd bring up what you're arguing about, and then you bring up what you're arguing about. It's at the top, and then it would be like your position, her position, kind of an agreement. The topic again, your position, her position. And it's just constant. It's like, why do we keep on? And then you have that same fight like a week later. And it's like, wow, why are we getting over this?
Absolutely. The repeated fights are a very good indicator that you're looking at things on the wrong level. So you need to look a level higher at what's really going on. So if you're, whatever you're fighting about, it's not about that thing, otherwise it would have been resolved.
Yeah.
So it has to be about a bigger issue or something underlying that's actually causing what's going on. So it's not about the fact that you're late from work. It's about the fact that we haven't had an hour to have quality time over dinner in a long time. It's not about the fact that you're repeatedly late for work. It's about the fact that I can't know how to plan my evening if I don't know when you're coming home. So it's okay that you're late, but I need to know in advance, or I need to know as soon as you know. Like, once you, after lunch, when it seems like it's going to be a long day, let me know so I can plan my evening differently. We both need space to learn and grow and do our own things. So we can find the time to do that when the other person is busy with a different priority, but we have to let each other know what the priorities are and when. Otherwise, we're just like, we're going to keep misaligning. We're going to do this dance of like missing each other, of not missing each other in the positive way, missing each other, like not connecting because you're missing opportunities because you can't plan.
Yeah, no, definitely. Very well put. I want to know how intimacy has changed throughout the years. I like asking this question because, young guys, they'll say, well, I don't want to get married. That's when the sex stops and all that stuff. And, hopefully that's not true for everyone. But one of the points that you had brought up was intimacy. So I figured it was a open or fair game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So intimacy has changed over the years significantly, because when in crisis, sex usually decreases, but intimacy may increase if you're using it as an opportunity to connect. So when you're in crisis and someone is vulnerable and needing assistance, this is an opportunity where you can bond and increase your intimacy in your relationship by doing things that are more private. Maybe you're crying in front of each other. Maybe you're helping someone with a wound or an injury. Maybe you're grieving together. Maybe you're praying together. You're doing things that you might not normally do that are private, but you're doing them together. So intimacy can grow when, in my experience, when your connection is strong, your communication is strong, sex happens with a much higher frequency. So throughout our relationship, as we've improved it, intimacy has become more consistent. We're able to connect more quickly. Like we can snap into being present with each other much faster. It might have taken hours sometimes, and sometimes we might not even connect. If we had a bad day, one of us is trying to unwind, the other person is stressed for a different reason. We're trying to get to a place where we can both have quality time together, and it's difficult. But as we both learn and grow and do things like meditate and breath work and visualization, and we build these healthy habits, taking walks and working out and things like that, eating right, the more things we put into place, the easier it is to connect quicker and the more intimacy we have. Also, having a willingness to share things that might be uncomfortable at first, like the flirting, for example. Like maybe that's a hard conversation at first, but maybe it can become an okay one. The same thing with intimate things, whether that's your private career aspirations that you don't want to share because you secretly want to be something that's not your current career, and then you're sharing that. Or maybe it's a sexual fantasy that you're sharing and it's intimate because of that. So intimacy has so many perspectives, so many angles that you can hit it. I think that the key is building it deliberately. Like, what am I doing to improve intimacy in my partnership? How often do I touch my wife? Like, do I flirt physically? Like, do you smack her behind? Do you grab her? Do you kiss her on the cheek? Do you come up behind her and hug her? What things are you doing to show your interest physically and building physical intimacy and maintaining that? Hopefully, growing it over time. Like, I think most people should go into the direction of way too much physical contact and flirting and stuff, and have their partner tell them to back off, because it usually won't happen.
Okay.
Usually, if you're into each other, which is why you got together in the first place, you're going to be very accepting and excited about your partner flirting with you, your partner showing physical interest, and you can do it a lot more than you think. most of the time your partner is not going to tell you to back off. And I think that that's the fear. It's the fear of rejection. But your partner's already accepted you. You're already together. You're probably married. They've already accepted you. So it's not that they're rejecting you. It's that the timing is off. It's that something about the situation is wrong. They want you overall. That's why you're together. So your bids for attention and attraction and connection, they're going to be met positively. Just be willing to do them way more often than you're doing them now. You can always be doing them more, and it will always help your relationship, in my experience.
No, I like that. I like how you kind of broke that down, because I've heard from a couple different people that, the sex has stopped, and then it's like, so what is it? And you talked about an underlying problem, and maybe it is the communication portion of it. Maybe they're not spending enough quality time. I don't think a lot of guys view that like that. Like they don't think about an underlying problem. They think, this is what I need. She's not giving it to me. Right?
You're right. And I was working with a couple not that long ago that one of them ranked sex as number 2 or 3, and the other ranked it as 10.
Yeah.
But they both ranked spirituality as number 1. And so I asked them how much time were they spending on each of these priorities, and they were spending hardly any time on spirituality, and the time they were spending was individual, not joint. And the way they had met was actually at a religious ceremony, at a church or something like that. And so their foundation of their relationship was actually their spirituality, but they weren't spending any time on it. And so they weren't connecting. One of them became completely disinterested in sex because it seemed like their partner was no longer interested in them. And so they ritualized their spirituality. They created a morning, 10-minute ritual where they pray together and talk a little bit. And they started going to ceremonies weekly again and taking time before it and after it to have discussions and connect. And all of a sudden they started having more sex.
Mm-hmm.
And
awesome.
the sex is not a 10 anymore. It's gradually creeping up. It's not a 1, but it might be like a 6 or a 7. And that might be plenty, especially when it was a 10 before.
Awesome. So, right now we're at an hour and 35 minutes. I don't want to keep you all night. I got one last question. Do you fart and or poop in front of your wife?
That's a great question. I excuse myself, and we have a master bedroom that has a bathroom. So I close the bedroom door, and then I go into the bathroom, and I do my business. And I like to keep it away from my wife. I like to preserve some mystery.
Yeah, I like asking that question because it seriously goes 50-50, I think, so far.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Some people keep the door open.
No, I'm with you on that. But a lot of people do keep the door open. But, it is what it is. That question was brought to me by a firefighter. He's like, you should ask that. And I was like, all right, we'll see. It is interesting.
It is.
So do you have anything else that you want to say or add?
I just want people to know that in my coaching experience and working with couples, your relationships don't need to be identical to work. Your relationship doesn't need to be like mine or like yours. And your priorities don't have to be the same, but you do have to regularly check in. That's the work that you have to do. Intentional conversations and make small, meaningful adjustments. Don't try to overhaul your whole relationship all at once. It's about small adjustments, building these healthy habits that you can actually sustain. Because if you try to overhaul your relationship, it's not gonna be maintainable, because you're putting in so much effort into a dramatic shift that you're not going to be able to maintain that effort. Both partners aren't going to be able to. So make small, meaningful adjustments. And my journey with my wife really taught me that when priorities are clear, relationships can thrive even under the worst circumstances. And so if this conversation resonated with you or anybody's interested in more support applying these principles, they could contact me on Instagram at personal dev coach, like development, personal DEV coach. I'd be happy to hear from you, and feel free to DM me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you visit nickbrancato.com, you can actually get Prioritize Us, a copy of the ebook for free, or you can go to Amazon and get the paperback or the hardcover online. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested, go to nickbrancato.com, download the ebook. It's completely free, and it will make a big difference in your relationship.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on. It was nice to talk to you. It was fun. I had a great time.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. It was cool to talk.
Yeah.
I liked our conversation a lot.
Thanks. I usually end the podcast with "It is okay to love your wife."
I love that.